And we are live. Welcome to Books to Create Your Future. And tonight I am joined by the incredibly talented Katarina Wallentin, all the way from Sweden tonight. How are you, Katarina?
I'm wonderful. And I'm not joining you from Sweden. I am joining you from South Africa. That's why the light is so summery and
What?
beautiful. I'm
How did you
spending
get to?
3 months here for the winter. I flew. I,
Oh,
I, I flew like a swallow down for the winter to South
well,
Africa.
I stand corrected. We have a Swedish lady in South Africa. So, how does it get better? You probably flew like a magical unicorn or a dragon or some baby stardust.
That's still on my list, and that would be amazing. Well, I did fly as a stardust. We're all stardust. That's what we're made of. So, yes, I did take all my little stardust pieces and flew down
Yeah.
here.
And just to give you an idea what we're talking about, whether you can see that,
Yeah.
this is one of the books. So you've written, correct me, you've written three books with Dain in regards to children's books of this kind of quality, haven't you?
Yeah, we've written a series of books called the Manifesto books, and we even have, like, at this point, it's a trilogy. So I think we're good with that. We may start another trilogy, but that's a trilogy which really started when a friend of ours had a baby, and she had her first baby, and Dane texted her a text about how to welcome this baby into the world. And it was so touching, like this text that I took the text and I was like, okay, this reminds me so much of something that I would have wanted to hear, when I was born, even though, words are not necessary, but the energy of it. And I made it into this unicorn, the baby unicorn manifesto, which is really what you should hear when you come into the world. And it's a book, I think that first book is for parents a lot. Like, it's for parents to look at their kids and to give that energy to their kids, because it is for very small children. It's for those first, like, first moments, first years of your life. So that was the very first book. And I remember when we read it out loud in a class. I think it was a certified facilitated class for access consciousness, and we read like each paragraph, one paragraph, and then he read a paragraph, and then I read a paragraph, and people were crying in the room because there's
Mhm.
so much of that you can still tap into as an adult. So in many ways, this whole trilogy, I would say, is children's books for adults and children. It really is for the child within you that could have used to hear these words or receive this energy and didn't, and now still can. So that's
Yeah.
how it all started. That was the first book, the Baby Unicorn Manifesto.
And it's a beautiful, I mean, you just elegantly and eloquently explain just the energetics, because obviously, as a baby, everything is energy. You haven't yet learned to speak Swedish or Swahili or Italian or whatever your native tongue is, but everything is energy. And to be welcomed in as a being, I mean, you've just been through birth, you've just been through a massive change and a welcome to the
Mm.
world. And these energies that you're talking to, Katerina, are such a contribution, A, to the parents, because this is like, oh, what do I do with this thing? And they've got a lot of stuff up in their world. And this baby's like this sponge, totally aware of every energy that's around it. And
Mm.
the communication begins between the parents. And for me, all of these books are very much about introducing and bathing the being, the baby, in this, and children in this awareness of this magical but very true and real world of energy.
And it's interesting because a colleague of mine, she told me that she had that book on her coffee table. Like, you can have the pretty books on your coffee table, so people visiting you can just like pick up a book and flip through it. And she said that the teenagers really wanted her to read that book out loud. That there was a particularly that book that they wanted to hear and again and again. So it may even be like this energy that we don't even know we're missing. And once
Mm.
we can actually receive it, it's it's like a nurturing, a something that like a piece missing that can be added. And it sounds significant. And I don't mean that. I think that we can do this in so many different ways. And that book is one way where you can kind of reinsert this energy into teenagers and adults and also give babies that
Mm,
energy.
mm,
And then the second book was really interesting because then there were a few people that said, "Hey, I don't really feel like a unicorn. I don't feel like a unicorn at all. I feel like a dragon." And I walked home with that and I was like, that's true. I don't feel like a unicorn all the time either. And I don't think I was a unicorn all the time when I was a kid. So we wrote a second book called The Baby Dragon Manifesto. And it's actually one of the books that we've gotten so much feedback on because in the Baby Dragon Manifesto, it's kind of like when a kid is 2 years old and start saying no, like when they start getting their own voice and start choosing. So in that book, it's a lot about, it's still the Baby Dragon Manifesto, but it's really about how you can accidentally set the world on fire and you're still not wrong, and about hearing, like, learning how to listen to the different voices in your head. Like, what will I follow? The destructive
mhm,
one, the one that actually is aware of people around you. So that book is still all about the energy, like you're saying, and more into this, what happens when you start to explore who you are in relationship to everything and everyone else and discover that you have power. You actually have fire that can change the world. So that book for me, I had the sense like, okay, I needed that book. I needed that energy of saying no, accidentally tripping, being wrong, like all of that. And it's still okay. You're still you, you're still a gift to the world. So that was the second book that we wrote that then we introduced to a lot of different people. And the people really like giving to their children that can read a little bit because they can really embrace that particular story.
and the illustrations as well. I was flicking through this book earlier before I came on the live. I'm just going to see if I can find the illustrations are just absolutely beautiful, and this is the same for all three of the
Yeah.
books. You know,
Yeah. It's this Argentinian illustrator. And it was interesting how we found her too, because when we wrote the unicorn book, if you look at, if you have, do you have the unicorn too or Stardust? Oh, that's the Stardust one. That's the last one. But it was one of those where it was very clear that we didn't want super cute unicorns. We didn't want like crude unicorns either. Like there was a very specific energy connected with the with how our baby unicorn would look like, be like, feel like. So there is a few pages online where you can look for children book illustrators. Actually, it's a whole, it's a whole business. So I was surfing around looking for different illustrators and asking them to draw us a unicorn. Like that was the test. Like, can you make a unicorn that will speak to us through this book? And we went through a lot of that. So I think it was like this particular illustrator was the fifth one or something, and she really managed to nail the unicorn. And then once we had her, she's such an amazing illustrator. So if you look in these books, they're all slightly different, also technique wise. You can see that it's her illustrations in all three books, but the way she uses the technique to create that is different. Like the last book is very much like a collage form of illustration. So you can kind of really, she I don't know exactly how she did it, but like she glued different layers on top of each other, and then she painted on, and then she photographed it and put it into her computer, like all the things that illustrators do today. That's quite advanced, but also it's a piece of art. Like all three books for me is a piece of art. The illustrations are absolutely stunning, and I love them. I love looking in the books, they have the energy of the story in them. They're not just illustrations
yeah,
there so it will become
yeah.
a children's book. They are 50% of the book is the illustrations that come with the story. So thank you for holding that up. Yeah, that
Yeah,
they
and,
are
and
they really are such a gift. And if you who are listening here would like to get a sense of it, we actually have a really beautiful video from the last book where the illustrations moved, the Stardust book. It's
Oh
a
wow.
part where Dane and I read the book, and then we had an animator take the illustrations from the book. So it's not like they jump around, but they move. So we can put that link under this live and you can go and check that out, because it also gives you a sense of the width and breadth of the illustrations. Like they really are something very special. I'm so glad you mentioned them. Can you read her name, because I forgot it, because I
Yes,
want her
I
name.
can. Illustrated by Natalie Beauvoir, is it?
Yeah, Natalie
Beauvoir?
Beauvoir.
Yeah.
So she's from Argentina, and she is really such a talented and beautiful illustrator. Oh yeah. And this book was the last one in the trilogy, and we had like tapped into unicorns and dragons, and so many people like sent us suggestions of the next magical animal that we should write about. Like, oh, it could be like a phoenix, or it could be a giant, or it could be, and it was none of them read. Like none of them really had any energy. And then at the time, it wasn't like the earth was so calling. So what we got to was, okay, so what if we went a very different direction and really wrote about the earth and how it came about, and the baby
Mhm.
stardust manifesto came from that, which really is a story about the earth and how the earth started and how different it is, and how like truly lucky we are to be on this planet and to be the stewards
Yes.
of this planet.
I just wanted to show this picture too, because all the way through all of the books, it's like we've got the writing on one side of the page, and then on the other
Yeah.
side you've got, and I love the adventure of this, because even as an adult, yes, you can read the words, but looking at the pictures, the detail, the energy, like there's a little girl sitting there with
Mm.
a circle of stardust going around her, and the planets in the future, and sorry, in the distance. And when you think about your imagination, I think as adults we kind of lose a lot of our imagination because we get so bombarded with life and being an adult, or whatever that means. So
Yeah.
for me, reconnecting with these, it just rekindles that sense of magic, that sense of wonderment, that sense of childlike awe. So yes, they are children's books in quote unquote, but they're not children's books. So we've
Yeah, and it's interesting what you're saying with that connection, because I learned a lot by creating children's books. I've written one more children's book, but not with Dane. It's called Clara and the Climate Changer. And it was a different, it's also a really cool book to read. But back to this one. So, what I've learned with this one is that the text, the copy, is just the beginning. And then you have the copy, you give it to the illustrator, and the book comes about in connection with the picture. It's like you say, it's not like a blank white page text and then picture. Some children's books, of course, are like that, but this is a very
I
much
I have the
a
book. I'm just going to go and grab it.
like a yeah. There's now it feels weird to keep talking when she's not here, but I'm going to do it anyway. So it's this where the words and the illustrations come together and create something that wouldn't exist if the words and the illustration were apart. Yes, that's the another book. It was my first children's books, Clara and the Climate Changer, and it's it's actually, you can actually hear the whole book. We can put that link under too. This, if you would like to. I For this Christmas, I have a book reading of the book. I read the whole book, so you could hear that, and then you could buy your own copy if you want to. But that book is interesting because I wrote it a long time ago. Yes. So it has a different look. It's more text. This book is more a full story. It's about one day in a little girl's life and how she changes the whole world in that one day in her pajamas still. But that book actually came about. I wrote it many years ago. I had a, I think my daughter was like 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old, and it just came to me, the story, and I was like, okay. So I wrote it down, and so she's 21 now. So it's quite long ago, and I sent it into a few publishing companies in Sweden, and the rejection I got at the time was, it's too provocative. Can't publish that book. it actually is not something you can suggest, because in the book it's it's like a children's story, but it's about us stopping the fossils, basically, the coming, the climate change part. So no more cars, no more whatever. So it's so interesting that now, of course, that book goes totally with what's discussed in the world, and it's not provocative at all at this point. It's like it's nearly like aligned with most of what most people say.
Yes.
But it was so interesting that at the time that was considered too provocative to publish. And then we published it, I think it's like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I think it came out. And a lot of kids also that I meet in classes really like this book because it's so children focused. Like it's focused on a child taking charge and moving, and the child's interaction with everything from an angry old lady to the president of the country to police, like all of that. So it has that sense of they can imagine themselves in that role. So that's also a cool book too to explore this Christmas. And I'll send you the link, Viv, so you can add it below if somebody wants to hear that one.
Yeah, great. That would be awesome. So, with Christmas coming up, we have a bundle with these three books. We haven't got Clara the Climate Changer included in there, but we can definitely add the links under the StreamYard. So, we've got the three manifesto books. So, we've got the Baby Unicorn, Baby Dragon, and the Baby Stardust book, and they are coming as a bundle. So, Liliana, I don't know if you've got the link to there we go. Asking we shall receive. So shop.happinessisjustachoice.com, and those books can be ordered online. I think we made them $90 AUD, but I do know that there are other locations throughout the world that you can order these books as well. So thank you. There we go. ACP Publishing, which stands for Access Consciousness Publishing, people.
And there is actually also, let me make sure I have the correct manifesto trilogy. So there is also a landing page for all of these three books that you don't really order them from there, but oh, there. Let me see. The babe. Okay. Sorry, we'll find it and we'll put it below so that you can explore all of those too. Oh, I found it. Wonderful. This is how fast it goes when you are on. Okay, where do I put it? In the comments?
Yeah, comments, and if you want to send it to me afterwards, I'll share
I'll just put it here so then you guys can use it there. So that's a great place to go if you want to check out all the books and just get a more sense of it before you buy them, because we put a lot of little videos on there, and so you can explore the illustrations and the topics for the books. That's wonderful. It made me really happy talking about them.
They don't have to be just for Christmas either. Like you said, Katarina, if you've got somebody that's expecting a baby, or they still read, they're looking for new books to read to their children as they go to sleep tonight. I mean, what a beautiful way to go to sleep. And what else is possible? So thank you so much, Katarina, for your inspiration and for your contribution to the books that you have co-authored, because these aren't the only ones. Maybe that's a conversation for another day.
For sure.
So I'm going to wish you a happy Christmas, even though it's early December, middle of December, from Australia to South Africa.
Thank you so much. And it was wonderful chatting about them. Thank you for that.
Great. Thank you for sharing. See, I learned something every time. So, and we'll be having more of these author interviews if you'd like to know more about the books that are able to create change for your future. And these aren't books that are just novels that you read for the sake of it. There is absolute gold in every single one of the books that I'll be talking about, and the authors that we'll be meeting and interviewing. So thank you so much, Katarina, and I look forward to seeing you down under one day soon.
Thank you. Bye everyone. Happy Christmas.
Bye everybody. Thanks for joining us.